We're near Simpsonville, South Carolina, and I'm speaking with a farmer, Terry Unger. Terry, you started off as a dairy farmer, but I don't think we're going to be drinking milk from these animals.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it tastes too good.
Because you've decided to grow worms.
Right.
And what kind of worms are we growing here?
We got the red worm and the Louisiana swamp worm, which is just a variation of a red worm, which is a little bit tougher worm and stay on the hook better, and they got just a bit of an odor to them.
Aha! So some people prefer one for fishing.
Yeah, that's just personal preference. Some just strictly red worms, some strictly swamp worms, and some will get some of each.
Now, to grow these worms, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to have a container, and you've got large containers here. A lot of them look homemade, and some of them look like you've kind of repurposed appliances. How do you go about starting off?
Well, you can use anything except for treated wood.
Oh.
You cannot use treated wood.
Uh-huh.
Because if that wood gets wet, then all them chemicals in that wood's going to seep in the beds, and then that's going to kill your worms. Chemicals will kill worms. But we just use basically like the wood beds here is from the woods they built when they was building these houses where they throw the wood out, and I went and got it, and then refrigerators, I'd get them and cut them in half and make 2 beds out of them.
And do you need to have drainage in these boxes?
Yeah, we found out that I use a 1/2-inch drill bit, make a 1/2-inch hole, and that way the excess water will drain out. And then we got some beds, I got a bucket underneath them, like the bathtubs, to catch the water. And then otherwise just let it drain on the ground.
Okay. And so you've got to have material in here, though, for the worms to grow in. So what do you use as the bedding? We
use the peat moss and black cow.
Aha.
That's what we use, and mix that pound for pound.
Mm-hmm.
And let that soak it down real good. Let it sit for about a week, 10 days. And make sure your pH levels are right close to 7. No, 6.8 to 7.2, but 7's just ideal. And after it's done that, gone through that heat cycle, then you're ready to put your worms in.
So you have worms in other boxes. You can just take a handful or 2 and inoculate the bed with it?
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to grow these worms, you've got to feed them something. So what are we going to give them to eat?
We use chicken feed, the crumbles.
Oh.
You can use cornmeal, but it's got to be the plain. You don't want that self-rising. It's got that yeast in there, and it'll blow your worms up and kill them.
Really?
Yeah.
My word.
But
Okay.
we use the chicken, the crumbles. You can use the mash, which is just like a powder. But I found out for us that the crumbles work better.
And how often do you have to feed a worm?
We feed ours once a week. Now you
Okay.
can get by maybe 2 or 3 days, depending on what size setup you got. Now an individual, you can probably get by 3 or 4 times, or once every 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Now, you don't have to mix the food in, though.
No, you just leave it set on top.
Yes.
And the worms will come up from the bottom up and eat it.
So they come up and get it and take it down.
Yeah, and now if you put it in there and you bury it,
Yeah.
then your bed's going to turn on the acid side, and that acid will kill your worms.
So you've learned over 20 years all the techniques that are involved in having healthy worms.
Yeah.
I imagine at first that this was probably pretty much for fishermen, because we think of worms and fishing, but you've said you've seen a difference and people are telling you they're using the worms for different purposes. How is that changing, Terry?
Well, a lot of them's used for composting.
Uh-huh.
And we got, because it's people's wanting to compost for their own food source for vegetables, planting them in. And we got some that'll buy them strictly just throw them out there in the garden for aeration. But the composting has picked up big time in the last 5 years or so, and it's the younger people getting into it.
They don't want to throw their food away and put it in the trash, and they can use these worms. You can have small beds, is that correct? And do your own version of composting on a smaller scale?
Right, right.
And then you end up with the benefits of those worm castings.
Yeah, because a lot of people like raising their own food nowadays.
And also, you said your wife Jolene actually will just use that in a flower pot. How has that been working for her?
That's been working real good. You can put the pure worm castings in the flower pot and put your flowers in there, and you won't have to change that for about 3 years. We tried it 4 years, but that 4th year you started noticing the nutrients are gone.
That's a long time, though, to have a flower pot
Yeah.
stay good and healthy and grow beautiful plants for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you mail these worms across the country?
Yeah, well, we ship through the mail. It's priority mail. And then you got to do a lot of labeling on there and package it up like you would, tape it up like you would a regular package, and take it to the post office.
And the reason you can do that is because you're growing these in a controlled clean environment. There's no chance of spreading any disease or anything like that.
That's right. It's got to be a clean product.
Do worms prefer warm weather, hot weather? Are they happier then, or what kind of weather do worms like?
Well, the worst is the hot weather. They're just gonna, they'll get like a human, just want to get lazy and do nothing. The cold weather, they like it, but the best temperatures is the fall and the spring.
Terry, just like when you were back in the cattle business, even worms, you need to come out here and keep an eye on them frequently, don't you?
Yeah, you got to be out here every day. You know, they're going to have to be fed pretty much every day, and they're going to have to be watered quite often. In the summertime, you can probably get by maybe 3 times a week. Wintertime or fall, about twice. Wintertime, when it's cooler, you can go by about once a week. Now, in the summertime, depending on that outside temperature and the air, how dry the air is, you might have to water every day.
So it really is just like anything else, growing a plant or growing an animal. You have to be attuned to the interaction of the environment and that animal itself, and make sure that you're filling all of its needs.
That's right.
If people want to learn more about worms, if they want to get some worms and try starting some themselves, or just to talk to you about them, is there a way they can get in touch with you?
They can call us at 864-299-1932.
Well, I want to thank you so much, and next time the weather's nice and I'm going fishing, I know where I can get me some nice worms.
We'll have them ready.